You're listening to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, your host, Ben Eagle. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you are listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 236 of the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, Ben Eagle. Today, we're heading to Herefordshire, and I'm speaking to Farmers Weekly's 2023 Beef Farmer of the Year, Ian Farrant, who farms 600 acres of land on the Herefordshire-Worcestershire border. Beef production on the farm is part of a larger family partnership, which also includes dairy and arable units. Ian's responsible for the beef, however, and rears and finishes around 650 dairy cross calves on a forage-based system. He's very keen at finding efficiencies as well as making the farm as sustainable as possible in all ways for the future, which we will go through today. And this in mind, he has diversified the farm into hazelnut production. Definitely my first hazelnut farmer that I've spoken to, for sure. He's now growing 11 different hazelnut varieties on 6 hectares of steep land on the farm. And he's planted clover in between the trees, which provide nutritious grazing for a couple of hundred chickens and turkeys, which he runs in the orchards. Ian, it is great to have you on Meet the Farmers.
Wicked. Hi, Ben. Hi. What an intro. I didn't realize I quite did that much stuff, but there you go. It's all good.
You've got quite a good CV, I have to say. Because when I was doing the research, I was like, and he's done this and this, and he's doing this.
Yeah, it keeps us busy anyway. That's the main goal.
Yeah, for sure. Tell us about the area first of all. So you're on the Herefordshire Worcestershire border.
Yeah.
Give us the tourist guide.
So we moved up here about 20 years ago. We used to farm down near Oxford. It's a beautiful spot. We're right on the North Herefordshire, Worcestershire, and Shropshire border. Throw that in there as well. Little place called Tenbury Wells and Bromyard are our 2 nearest towns. Proper rural. You know, if you were to ask someone to draw a picture of rural Britain, I think this is pretty much what you'd get. Green.
Yeah, it's pretty much where it's where the Archers is set, isn't it?
Oh, it probably is. Yeah, that would figure. That would figure.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure we got a few of those characters in our village. So it's just a beautiful spot. And coming from right on the edge of Oxford, where people didn't understand agriculture, we were surrounded by very wealthy people. We weren't particularly treated that well. So we ended up here, and it's fantastic. It's great community. Everyone looks after each other. Everyone understands what you're trying to achieve. So it's a lovely area. Beautiful.
Sounds great.
Apart from today, the training. But
apart from all the time at the moment, it seems. Yeah. Tell us a little bit of the history of the place, I suppose, and also, I mean, you said you were near Oxford, so how you came to the farm as well.
So, we're part of a bigger partnership, which you mentioned earlier. So it started off as my grandfather and my dad and uncle would have been in the 60s or 70s, I would have thought, farming one farm in Oxford, a tenant of a Oxford College farm. So almost all the land around Oxford is owned by Oxford colleges. And then dad managed to get tenancy on almost a neighbouring farm as well. So he set up his own dairy unit, but still under the same family partnership. A few years after that, the Oxford College wanted to raise a bit of cash and decided to sell that farm. And as sitting tenants, Dad did the bravest thing you could possibly do, borrow every penny and just go for it. And managed to buy the farm, which was the single best decision he could have possibly made. And then from there, we managed to get some planning permission on old stone barns that overlooked Oxford, beautiful stone buildings. And then we decided, right, that's it, we'll sell up. And we went farm shopping, which was really quite something, and once in a lifetime opportunity. We kind of drew a 100-mile circle around Oxford and said we didn't really want to travel any further than that. And we weren't looking at farms. So we went down to Devon, we looked at a few in Leicestershire, and then this one popped up in Herefordshire, and it's just the perfect farm, great soil, great livestock area, good amount of rainfall in a normal year. It's a ring fence farm as well. So it's kind of perfect for what we wanted. So what we ended up doing is we put dad's cows with my cousin and uncle's cows. We put in a 50-point rotary parlour on their site. So they now milk kind of 650. And we came up here and started a beef enterprise. We'd spent almost every penny we had on the farm. So we needed
Yeah.
to set up some kind of cheap, low input, low cost system. We have these calves coming from my cousins anyway that we didn't really know what to do with. So we just started rearing them, doing it as cheaply as we could, and it's growing from there. So yeah, so far so good. Touch wood, fingers crossed the next 25 years keep going as well as they have so far. So
Let's talk a little bit about you and take me back to early life, anyone who inspired you. And yeah, you ended up doing a degree in agriculture at Reading.
um yeah, inspirations is I'm a fan. Turns out I'm just a family man. My inspirations, my grandfather and my great grandfather both got MBEs for
Oh, wow.
services to agriculture in the First and Second World Wars. So my grandfather, I think, as far as I can work out, he's long dead now, but he was in his early 30s when the war kicked off, and his responsibility was to go around neighbouring farms in Berkshire, was Berkshire then. If they weren't doing a good enough job, he could take the land off them and farm it properly. So yeah, we got quite a heritage of farming. Yeah, what a great place to grow up. Amazing experiences as a child, just hanging around with my father, doing what kids do on farms. Naturally led into agriculture. I actually, after doing my university degree, I decided I didn't want to be a farmer for a bit. I had that conversation with my dad, and my mum, which was the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Okay.
Um, and as soon as I opened my mouth and I said I didn't want to do it, they were fantastic about it, really supportive. But as soon as I said I didn't want to do it, it kind of dawned on me what a ridiculous decision that was. Especially as I wasn't that far off wanting to have kids myself, and the opportunities that having a farm offers children is beyond what most people can imagine. So changed my mind again, stuck to it, and yeah, I love it to pieces now. So yeah, all good.
Yeah. Um, just tell me a little bit more about that wider family partnership, because obviously, yeah, you've been recognised for your beef production, but there are other things going on the farm.
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, cousin was my uncle, but now really my cousin runs the dairy unit in Oxford. So they're very much a low input grazing dairy system. He would be Frisian, Fleckvies, Montbéliards, Norwegian Red kind of cross animals based on
Okay.
a fertility and longevity being priorities rather than just yield. And also alongside that, we have an arable farm tenanted off an Oxford College again. We took on a few years ago, which is now run by his son, my second cousin Will, and he's doing a fantastic job there. And I think what works so well with our family partnership, because there's a lot of partners, there's a lot of people involved. What works so well is we all have our own enterprises. We're not stepping on each other's toes. I mean, literally geographically, we're quite a long way apart now.
Yeah.
We have monthly meetings to talk through everything. If I want to spend any money, I have to be able to justify it to the other 7 people that are in the room at the time, and that keeps you really focused on not going stupid, spending stupid money, etc., etc. So fundamentally, they're great. All the other people in the partnership are fantastic farmers, but more importantly, they're all really nice people, and it's just a pleasure to be part of that. And I know it seems quite a rare thing these days. Family
I
partnerships
say
used
it's
to be quite big,
really
but
nice to hear that.
yeah, yeah. I think it. To be frank, I think it boils down to the fact we all do different things. If I was a dairy farmer as well, we'd probably have a different dynamic, I guess. We'd be questioning each other a little bit more. but we have our own little areas of expertise, and that's brilliant. So yeah, it's fun. Long may it continue anyway.
Let's talk about the beef enterprise. I'm interested, first of all, in the bigger picture. So, in terms of your focus and your goals, because you are quite data driven with this, which we'll go on to. But what's the bigger picture, first of all?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I had a just on that, I had a AHDB meeting not so long ago, and we had people come into the farm and they did full financial review of our business, and it took days and days to do it. It's quite painful, really good, but quite painful. And the very last question he asked me, it was at like Friday, 5 o'clock, and he said, "So Ian, what do you want to get out of the farm?" And I kind of rolled my eyes and thought, "Oh God, here we go. I just want to make as much money as I can," thinking that was the obvious answer. And he said, "No, I want you to go away. I'm going to ring you tomorrow. I want you to go away, and I want you to think about that." And so I went away and I thought about it. And he kind of said, "Write some tangible things down, right? What are you actually wanting to achieve?" So my goals are pay off our mortgage before I retire, be actively involved in raising my children. So getting a work life, but fundamentally a work life balance that I enjoy, and leaving the farm in a better state than I found it. And since I did that, and since I wrote those things down, everything's become quite clear, because they're actually tangible things you can aim for, either financial aims or whether it's soil health, whatever. They're all things that we can actually measure, and we can see whether we're heading in the right direction. So yeah, they're my goals. Whether I'll get to them all or not, I don't know. But yeah, so data. You asked about data. Data comes into that. I'm a geek really at heart, and a science geek at that. And I love that. I love data. I love trying to analyze it and seeing whether we got any patterns or whatever it might be. So we weigh cattle on a monthly basis. We measure intakes on a daily basis. We measure grass growth on a weekly basis, and we just try and gather as much as we can and make decisions based on those. Yeah.
I suppose, I mean, this was something that Farmers Weekly picked up on when you were going through the process for the awards, and you ultimately won Beef Farmer of the Year. But I was reading a report on it, and this was a big thing that they brought through was, I suppose it goes beyond that, because it's how you use that data.
Mhm.
Isn't it, in terms of how you turn the data into greater profit, and this will be something that a lot of farmers will think, and it does take time, but once you set those processes
Yeah.
up, it's what I'm told, then you start to see those results. So what's the reality for you?
Yeah. Massively. I mean, it still staggers me to this day that people produce beef without weighing their cattle. Every decision we make is based on that monthly weight. So whether it's just honing the diet down in the winter, whether it's making sure intakes are where they should be, whether it's working out whether that diet could be slightly cheaper, whether it's working out that the diet's not quite doing what it should be doing, et cetera, et cetera. It's all data driven. Without that monthly weighing, we can't work that out. Now, it's easier. You could argue it's easier on a dairy farm. My cousin would have a go at me now, probably, but it's easier on a dairy farm because you're getting a ticket. You're getting a milk ticket on a daily basis. So if you
Yeah.
if you make a change to a diet, or put them grazing a slightly different lay, whatever it might be, you can see the result a day later. The problem with beef is you have to wait 30 days before you weigh them. Otherwise, you get some strange results with rumen fill and whether they've just had a drink of water or whatever. So it is slightly frustrating. You make a change and then you've got to wait 30 days more to see whether that change has come to fruition. But yeah, it's what gets me revved up, to be honest. It's the exciting bit of farming for me. Yeah.
Yeah. But on that, really, and going back a bit, you mentioned that you once upon a time told your parents that you didn't want to go into farming.
Yeah.
What did you want to go into? Was it something that was sort of data
Uh,
sciencey related?
I didn't have a plan. I think, yeah, if I wasn't a farmer, I think some kind of science related thing would really tick those boxes. but no, I didn't have a plan, to be honest. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I don't think a lot of people do necessarily, do they, when they're in their early 20s? And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you can take your time and work it out yourself. But yeah, I'm happy with where I am now. And I'm really lucky in that I have a really supportive father and mother who basically, when I came home, they all but said, just do what you want. We have faith in you. We'll help you as much as you want. But yeah, if you want to have a go at something, have a go at it. Hence the reason we got some hazelnuts, whether that was a good idea or
Ah,
not.
okay. This episode is being supported by our primary sponsor, Howden Rural, which is the new name for A-Plan Rural. The Howden team shares my passion for giving a voice to farmers, and we are both driven to raise the profile of farming voices to a wider audience. Howden Rural do a lot of work on social media themselves, sharing farming accounts and farming stories. They have a rural community blog which shares farmers' experiences. And they also support a growing number of initiatives that champion UK farmers, including this podcast. So a big thank you to Howden Rural for supporting Meet the Farmers. Just, I will get on to hazelnuts, but before that,
Yeah.
I want to talk about sustainability because the beef sector in particular tends to, on the outside, there's a lot of beef farmer bashing going on when it comes to the sustainability debate. But this is absolutely key for your future, really, and the way that you plan things. So I'm interested in your approach to sustainability.
Yeah, you can't get away from it, and you meant that word means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and a lot of people will roll their eyes when you mention sustainability. But oh my God, red meat industry, it is everything to us. But it's also a massive opportunity. While we have been a cause of climate change, you could argue with methane and water quality issues and soil health problems and et cetera, et cetera. On the other hand, we hold all the right cards for sorting those problems out. So for me, sustainability first and foremost means profit. You can't be sustainable unless you maintain a profit. So that means we have to find a way of generating profit in years of drought or in years like we've got at the moment when it doesn't stop raining. But ironically, when you go down that road and you sort those problems out, you almost inevitably end up helping biodiversity and environment. So, for example, I'm getting more and more worried about drought in the summer for our grazing. So we planted more and more herbal lays with deep rooting chicories and plantains and red clovers and stuff. That's predominantly so we make sure we have got forage to graze in August. Inadvertently, what that does is it's full of biodiversity. It's full of bees and butterflies and bugs of all description. It's great for soil health, constantly increasing the soil organic matter. It's great for soil infiltration. It's great for storing water in dry times. It's also great for slowing water up in times of heavy rainfall. We don't use any fertilizer on it, so it's obviously great from an environmental point of view. Again, on that front, it's also great for our costings because we're not using fertilizer, and the cattle grow as quick on that as they do on regular grass. So yeah, sustainability can be quite scary, but at the same time, it's surely that's a win-win-win-win-win.
I want to ask you about that AXGB analysis
Yes.
that you carried out. Clearly, it seems like it was maybe a bit of a nightmare at the time, but really worthwhile doing. What were those sort of other questions that they were asking, and how did it help the overall business? How did it help you progress?
I'm a AHDB monitor farmer, and to start, they want a full financial review of your business, which is quite intimidating to have someone external come and go through your costings. Normally, when farmers do costings, you do it yourself.
Yeah.
To actually have someone come in and go through everything's quite a little bit daunting. You think
So
you're doing all
someone
right,
someone
but
holding you to account.
exactly, yeah. But fundamentally, it was all financial figures, and we did some what ifs. So we did some what ifs on if we did reduce our FERT and we use more herbal lays. We did some what ifs in if we reduced our maize area and we grew some lucerne. So it's those kind of scenarios we did, which were fantastic because it's quite hard to get your head around that on your own. but yeah, it was just that comment at the end. That was the only kind of deep thinking comment. And funnily enough, I went on a meeting the other day where I met Michael Blanche, another
Okay.
podcast legend like yourself, and he was doing meetings on time management, and
Yeah.
so I went along thinking it would be about how can you be more efficient and streamlined and those kind of things. But actually, it very quickly became quite a deep conversation on what you can't talk about time management without talking about your priorities. You can't talk about your priorities without really talking about what you want to get out of life. So yeah, that turned into some pretty deep conversations as well. But I think farmers have got to go there. You got to make some uncomfortable conversations sometimes to learn where you want to be, and then yeah, go from there.
Yeah. And listeners, I'm sure that many, if not most of you, will have listened to Michael's series on About Time. Yeah, if you haven't, head to the Pasture Pod. You can find it there. Highly, highly recommend.
Absolutely.
Now, I love learning about new plants, and this is definitely a new one on me. So, other than I know what they look like and I know what they taste like,
Yeah.
that's about all I know.
Yeah.
Hazelnuts. Why did you start to grow hazelnuts?
That is a brilliant question. So okay, so about 5 years ago, beef was getting an absolute shoeing in the press. Really before the regen side of things kicked off. I suppose that was the worst moment. It was quite scary for a business that is reliant on ruminants almost completely. It was getting quite scary. So we got a fantastic farm. Half of our farm is relatively flat, and we could if we didn't have red meat here, we could produce arable crops without too much trouble. But the other half is relatively steep. You can just about drive a tractor up it if it's dry, but some of it is pretty steep and great grazing land. But if you don't have ruminants, you can't use grazing grass. So what the hell are we going to do with this steep stuff? So we had some long conversations about it and thought, right, what does everyone want? And everyone seemed to want something that was sustainable and something that was healthy and something that wasn't producing methane, blah blah blah. And we thought about apples, but apples around here seem to be very cyclical. Everyone's either putting them out in or pulling them out. We thought about pears and various things like that. But actually, what it came down to is at the bottom of our garden, we've got a hazelnut tree, cob nut, hazelnut, whatever you want to call them, really, and it produces thousands of nuts. This small tree produces thousands of nuts at the bottom of our garden. Squirrels get them all.
Yeah, of
We
course.
we never get them, but uh, me and Dad were in the garden just looking at it, just going, well, we know they grow here,
Yeah.
grow in the bottom of the garden. Hazels grow in the hedges, they grow in the woods. There's not very many grown in the UK at all. There's a few grown in Kent, and actually Herefordshire and Kent, soil-wise, very similar.
Yeah.
Um, and I started doing more and more research and couldn't really think of a good reason why we shouldn't give it a go. So told my family that I wanted to give it a go, and we talked it through. And the same question kept coming up, which was, what about squirrels? What about squirrels? What about squirrels?
Yeah.
Which is a very valid question. And realistically, the best answer for that is if you're going to do it, you plant a massive area or a decent sized area that kind of dilutes the squirrel issue.
Okay.
So we decided if we're going to do it, let's do a whole field. Let's do 15 acres and go for it. So we did. Annoyingly, I planted over a 2 year period, 2 winters, and they were both the driest springs after planting that we'd ever had, which was so annoying. The worst possible thing you can have for planting a tree. So I ended up trying to irrigate them with slurry tankers and all sorts of stuff, and it was really, really tough because actually I'd worked out you need about 30 inches of rainfall not to have to irrigate, and we get 30 inches of rainfall here. So I
Okay.
thought we were in safe territory. We weren't, unfortunately. So it was a steep learning curve. We had to replace a lot of trees. But my theory is the ones that have survived, their roots must be so low now that hopefully they'll survive anything. And And yeah, we had our first kind of commercial small crop this year. It's really, you have to wait 10 years until you get proper yields. But we sold, I think, a couple of 100 kilos to a guy on Borough Market,
Yeah, great.
who specializes in agroforestry products. And yeah, he was delighted with them, and I got paid a decent amount. So yeah, all in all, it's going well. It's I know nothing about trees. I know nothing about hazelnuts. Someone once told me, if you're going to plant trees, get on and do it, and then learn about everything while they're growing.
Yeah.
So I've kind of gone for that technique. But yeah, fascinating. And like you said, so we got these trees growing in this field with beautiful clover underneath, but we obviously can't graze cows in there. So we started thinking, what else could we do with this grass underneath to try and utilize it? And we started trying pastured poultry, mainly just for our own use and our staff first. But yeah, that's been brilliant, really, really entertaining. Again, something I know nothing about, completely different world, but good fun to try.
Start and learn as you go on. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Why not? Why not? You know, I think too many people are worried about what their neighbors think. And I couldn't give a monkey. So we'll give it a go and see what happens. If it fails, it fails. It doesn't matter. At least we tried.
Yeah. One more hazelnut question. How do you harvest them?
So that's a brilliant question. So every hazelnut, as far as I can gather in the UK, is harvested by hand.
Wow.
Because they're grown in, if you think of a hazel tree, you think of like a multi-stem bush, you know, like
Yeah.
quite a bushy. Now I've been growing them, or trying to train them in a single stem, so a single stem tree, if I can say it, with the intention of buying like a tree shaker and catcher machine. So shake it, inverted umbrella, hopefully catch all the hazelnuts before they hit the floor, which is what they do with olives or cherries or those kind of things
Absolutely.
abroad. So
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
that's the plan. Because if the answer is I've got to pick them by hand, then I've made a pretty big mistake, I think. Because hopefully we'll yield. If things go well, we'll get a ton an acre. So we might end up with 15 tons a year, which, you know, that's a lot for. I've only got 2 children. I'm not sure they're very keen on getting involved. So there's a lot of picking for someone to do, but there must be. I think there's mechanical ways of doing it, which I'm super keen on. So yeah.
Fascinating. Well, wish you the absolute best of luck. And I mean, are there many other growers in the UK?
There's more and more. So we happen to have the biggest nursery up the road where I get the trees from, a place called Frank Matthews. They also grow hazels. And I think basically if you're a farmer thinking about planting hazelnut trees, you go there anyway. So I got all the info from her, and she said no one grew them 10 years ago, and all of a sudden lots of people are growing them. They're actually
Oh, well.
quite popular. But I think it will come down to squirrel control. It will come down to, if you try and grow an acre of hazelnuts, I don't think you stand a chance. You know, realistically, you need a decent area, or you need great squirrel control. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. It might be a horrible mistake, but yeah, we're giving it a go.
Meet the Farmers is brought to you by Rural Pod Media, the only podcast production agency to specialize in the rural sector. We're on a mission to make rural stories mainstream and help businesses, organizations, and communities like you tell your story through podcasting. Podcasting is a fantastic way of connecting with your audience, whoever that might be, getting your message out there and networking with leaders in your niche. Rural Pod Media can help you by launching your new podcast or helping you with the technical side. We also provide podcast training and an audit service if you already have a podcast. You're not sure where to take it to next. For more information or to book a call, visit ruralpodmedia.co.uk. That's ruralpodmedia.co.uk. Let's move on to the part of the show where we talk about general industry challenges and opportunities, actually, but challenges and opportunities on a bigger scale. What are they for you?
Oh, crikey. I mean, it's got to be, you must get the same answer to this question all the time now. It's got to be climate. It's got to be resilience. We moved here 20 years ago, like I said. The climate has changed dramatically in 20 years. I mean, we've got my dad. It must be where I get my OCD data from, but he's collected every day's rainfall on this farm since we arrived. So we've got great
Wow.
rainfall records. And actually, when you look at average rainfall through the year, it's very similar, but it comes less frequently and it comes a lot harder when it does fall. And that's, it's terrifying, to be frank. If that's changed that much in 20 years, what's it going to be like in 50 years' time when my children might be farming here? It is terrifying. We need to do what we can to adapt to that, but also we need to do what we can to stop it getting any worse. And you can't try and save the planet. I think you'd go insane. Who was it? It was the guy from White Oak Pastures. I can never remember his name. Will Harris from White Oak Pastures said, like, he's not trying to save the planet. He's only trying to save his farm. And I like that. We'll do our best for our farm and try and keep as resilient as we can. But yeah, it is a worry for sure. Yeah.
Thinking of moving ahead, is there anything new you'd like to do on the farm? I mean, you're already doing quite a lot that's new, and you've got a lot going on anyway. But what does the future look like for you on the farm?
I've changed a lot. If you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, it would have been, I want a farm. I want a farm Herefordshire. I want it all. I want it all. But
Empire building.
yeah, literally. But I don't know whether it's having children or learning about soil health or whatever it might be. But 600 acres is a huge area to try and manage it, and there's a lifetime of improvements that can be made here, and that is my focus now. Sure, if an amazing opportunity came up next door, I wouldn't say no, but I really want to hone what we do here and try and be a kind of industry leader in sustainable beef production and help others do the same, because we've got a great story to tell, and the UK should be really proud of where we're heading farming wise. And yeah, we got an answer to a lot of difficult questions. So the answer is, I hope I'm here in 10 years' time, and I hope I'm happy, and I hope everything's still going well.
And for the beef sector in general, do you see a positive future for beef?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I do. Whether there end up being a two-tier market, a bit like dairy. I mean, we seem to be going down that road now, like dairy did 20 years ago, where you're either going to be indoor all year round, or you're going to be regen style
Yeah.
rotational grazing. We had a kind of aha moment about 4 years ago when so we're something called a grazing AFU, technical jargon, but means we can buy quite cheap calves, and if we go down with TB, it doesn't really matter. But we're now in a badger cull zone, and that's been taken away from us. So we could have kind of gone down two roads. The easiest road would be, right, we're going to house our cattle 365 days of the year. We don't have to worry about TB. We don't even have to TB test. Or I'm not keen on that. I don't have any problem with people deciding to do that at all. If they're happy with that, brilliant. My best day of the year is the day we let the cattle out to graze. It's just such a brilliant time. I love seeing the cattle out grazing. There is nothing cheaper than good quality grazed grass. The way they grow on that is just phenomenal. So we went down the other route, and I just see, there's going to be a two-tier market before very long. There's going to be hopefully a premium for regen style resilient beef, and then everyone else will have to deal with the world market, and good luck to them. But yeah, I think beef and red meat on the whole, yeah, integrated, especially if you can get it integrated within an arable system and it benefits everyone, I really think there are wins to be had. So yeah, the future's not too dark, I hope.
Just a little more about our primary sponsor, Howden Rural, which is the new name for A Plan Rural. Same people, different name. Howden Rural provide bespoke insurance cover for farms and estates. This could be for anything from tractors and machinery to a new exciting diversification venture. So for more information, visit howdeninsurance.co.uk/rural. We're going to move on to the quick questions, starting to round this up. These are a bit random. If you could travel anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
where would you go and why?
Okay. So lucky enough to have done quite a bit of traveling. We had, I'm 40 now. We've had kids relatively late in our lives, and we did quite a bit of traveling. And the greatest place I've ever been is a place called Bhutan, which is in the Himalayas.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to Bhutan.
It's I'd go back there in a heartbeat. It's just a different world, you know. It's firstly it's in the mountains. You can't walk around anywhere that isn't about 2,000 uh, meters up. It's like stepping back in time, you know. All the farms there are like 1 acre farms. I spoke to a few farmers when I was there, and he had two. He was really pleased because he had two cattle. And he asked me, what I did for a living, and it was so embarrassing because it was like, I'm a farmer too. It's like, oh wow, wow, wow. So what do you do? And I was like, well, we've got about 1,000 cows, and he was just like, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
But it's such a beautiful place, and like I say, it's like stepping back in time. And they've got this principle over there where they judge not gross domestic product, but gross domestic happiness. They call it, which is
That was one of the few things I know about Bhutan.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's very kind of Buddhist-y kind of, yeah, borderline hippie-ish kind of concept, but it's just so different to here, and I'd love to go back. But they got a the reason not many people go there, they got this great policy in that they only want a certain number of tourists a year, and so if demand gets quite strong, they just up the price of the visa.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
visas now is $250 a day.
Oh wow.
So
Right. Okay.
that's the reason it not many people go there.
I
um,
see.
but yeah, brilliant. If you ever get an opportunity and someone's willing to pay the visa, then yeah, jump on it. Yeah,
Yeah. If we have any listeners from Bhutan, because we do have quite a few listeners from that part of the world, please do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to
absolutely.
have a farmer from Bhutan actually on the podcast as
That would be
well.
brilliant. Oh my God,
Um,
that would be brilliant. Yeah.
that would be amazing.
But they do, it's
Uh,
amazing, sustainability wise, although it seems backward, they're miles ahead of everyone else. Their roads are made from recycle. A lot of their roads are made from recycled tires.
okay.
Instead of like tarmac, they recycle the tires and they use it in the roads, and
Makes sense.
they plant loads of trees, and I don't know. Yeah, it's just a different world, like I say. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, nice shout out for Bhutan today. I was not expecting that. Uh, the next one is your favorite song or artist.
So yeah, I think I was born about 40 years too late. So I like
Weren't we all?
60s music. So my
Yeah.
favorite song is "Give Me Shelter" by the Rolling Stones.
Nice.
Anything kind of Stones, Beatles, that era, which drives my partner nuts. She thinks just I'm pathetic, but there you go. But yeah, no, I love it. Yeah,
I'm with you, Ian. I'm with you, Ian.
good man, good man.
Definitely. And finally, a book to recommend.
I found this difficult, and my partner would laugh if she was here because I'm not a big reader. I try, my God, I try, but I'm like 2 pages in, I'm asleep always. But the one book I have managed to read recently, which I know you had Hugh on recently, and he talked about Dirt to Soil from Gabe Brown,
Yeah.
which I love that. And the next book on from that was For the Love of Soil by Nicole Masters, which is very, it's much of a theme really, but they really get you revved up for looking after the soil and doing your part. And it's something I definitely reread just to get the juices flowing again. But yeah, that would be a definite one for anyone thinking about going down that road.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, certainly farmer listeners listening. Yeah, get copies of those if you don't already. Move on to the final questions. The first is Ian Farrant. What is your message for the public?
Yeah, thanks for the heads up on this because I've been thinking about this. I found this one really difficult. We run the risk of being quite preachy, don't we, as a sector? You hear people saying, "Oh, you should thank a farmer, you should blah blah blah." I'm not a big advocate for that at all. People thank us when they pay their money to buy our products. But I think my message would be I'm not fully sure people understand how their buying habits when they walk down the aisle in Tesco's, what impact that has on the countryside, and what impact that has on the soil, and what impact that has on water quality and climate change and their own health and stuff. And I think Tesco. I should say any supermarket, shouldn't I? But I'm picking on Tesco's because they're the
Other
biggest. But
supermarkets are available. Yeah.
they are, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm guilty. We our nearest one is a Tesco's, and we shop there. And I wish I didn't, but I do because it's convenient, and we're all addicted to convenience.
Yep.
But if you're lucky enough to have enough wealth where you can actually think about what food you're buying rather than just trying to buy the cheapest stuff, really stop and think about where it comes from and try and learn where it comes from, especially your meat. I mean, you can have two products on supermarket shelves next to each other, which have such a different story, whether it's chicken that's produced in a shed or free range pastured chicken that's produced outside. The difference that has not only on the animal's welfare, but the soil and the air quality, like I said, and the water quality and all those things are so massive. Tesco's can't write that on the packet. There's not enough space on the shelf to try and get that story across. So it's kind of up to individual people to do a bit of research. And in an ideal world, buy your meat locally, get to know a farmer. We're not all scary people. Some are. Some are
Some
definitely
are.
scary people.
Most
But
aren't.
we're not all scary. And if you get an opportunity to go on a farm open day, go and ask some questions and find out a bit more and get to know a farmer and buy directly if you can, because you're doing everyone a favor, to be honest. So yeah, that would be my advice, not advice. That would be my message to them. Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. And your message to farmers.
Work out what your priorities are, like we talked about earlier. And this isn't a sit down once job. This is an annual. This is probably an annual review. And the guy that did our financial review said I should take a day out with my partner once a year, go off and have a meal and sit down and talk about it, because it does change, obviously. But actually sit down, work out what's important to you, not farm wise, but in your life, what are you hoping to achieve? And then use your farm and your time to try and meet those goals. Easier said than done, I know. But at least you're working towards something. You've got a long-term plan.
Yeah, I think it's such a good point. And also, I think what you're alluding to there as well, I think it's about seeing that bigger picture as well. Also seeing your partner's point of view as well in terms of what they want to achieve in life
Exactly.
as well is just as important. Um,
Oh,
take
yeah.
that
I
into
mean,
account.
absolutely. So my partner's a teacher, and when we had kids, she absolutely made it fully on the table that she was going back to work and she wanted to work, and it's an important part of who she is. So yeah, part of my goal is to make sure that she can do 2 or 3 days a week work and have that life outside of our family and our farm, because staying on a farm all the time can be, pretty hard work. So yeah, that's yeah, take everyone's viewpoint in and come up with some common goals. Yeah.
We're going to leave it there, Ian.
Cool.
Ian Farrant, thank you for coming on Meet the Farmers.
No worries. Thanks, Ben.
Been great having you. That's it for today. Yeah, my guest today was Ian Farrant. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks to our podcast sponsor, Howden Rural Insurance. If you can do one thing, please do share this episode on your socials. Tell someone you know about the podcast. Next time, I'll be speaking to Staffordshire-based soft fruit grower Anna Barton. So I hope you can join me for that. Please also check out our sister show, Rural Business Focus. I will be back with you next week. But for now, I'm Ben Eagle. This has been Meet the Farmers. And thank you very much for listening.